rail alignment upon completion of the economic impact study. This is your item, Mr. Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem, do you have a motion?
Yes, I do, Mayor. I move to approve the resolution with the following change reference to above ground rail line to above ground passenger rail line. Change reference to downtown Dallas to Central Business District. For our purpose of this resolution, the Central Business District is the area defined in Section 28-114.0. Section 28-114.11 of the Dallas City Code.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there a discussion?
Yes.
You have 5 minutes. Everyone, we're on item 44.
Mayor, we back in March of this year, this was brought to the Economic Development Committee, and we spoke about the high-speed rail. And the resident and people got to understand, we represent the city of Dallas. By representing the city of Dallas, I mean that when you do any type of a rail or any type of development, this multitude of type of development, you always do an economic impact study. And there was not an economic impact study done. But in the process that I did talk to the city manager, and we are going to get an economic impact study. We are be ahead of schedule when we try to do something without economic impact study. Because to do that, we are looking at what is the tax value of our property, how we develop the property the right way. And the reason why I say that, I look at District 4, and I'm not pointing District 4 out just by saying a comparison. If you look at the light rail, the first light rail we did in the city of Dallas, that light rail went straight down Lancaster Road. And when it went straight down Lancaster Road, you look at the economic impact that it did to Lancaster Road. And you look at one little business over there called Record Barbecue, and you see a bridge go over Record Barbecue because they did not want the rail to go in front of their street. And to do that, we kill the best opportunity for the tax base and for the business opportunity, economic impact study. And now, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem Armour trying to develop the Lancaster corridor, and you got a rail running straight down the middle of the street. And so I'm saying this right here to you, that whatever major project we do, we need to do economic impact. Because number one, I understand the Houston to Dallas. I do understand that. I do understand, we talk about Dallas to Fort Worth, but we are Dallas. I understand the region, but we still are Dallas. I understand what we're trying to accomplish, but we get elected by the citizens of Dallas. The taxes we get pay for our infrastructure, pay for our school, our parks, our library, our street, Dallas. If we don't take care of Dallas, we're going to be in trouble. And I'm not going to call the other region out by name, but they are taking a whole lot of resources from Dallas, a whole lot of tax base from Dallas. And what we have to do is stand strong of whatever we do in the city of Dallas, because every time we lose tax base or opportunity to grow the tax base, that our citizen suffers. They have to find a way, and we suffer, and right now we try to find a way, how do we balance our budget? And we balance our budget based on taxes that we bring in. We also balance the budget to make sure that we got a pension fund that we got to finish. We got to fund. And every time we save, every time we do, and every property tax that we do, we look at the uniform. We also look at the employees. And that's why I'm begging y'all, look at a resolution. This resolution is not something that stopped the program. It's to put a pause. It's just putting a pause on, pump the brake, so we as a council get caught up. Not the staff, but we as a council need to get caught up. And we have not got caught up yet. I have talked to my chair on the Vice, and I asked him, I said, the Vice, have we caught up yet? Have we been in all those meetings? No, we have not been in all those meetings. There's a whole lot of meetings going on, but this council has not been prisoner to those meetings. And so until we catch up, let's tap the brake a little bit. Let's look at Dallas, because I do understand that we as the council, we are the policymakers and staff, and also City Manager Tolbert, could you just kind of walk us through real quick about the process of the economic development study?
Thank you so very much, Mayor Pro Tem Atkins, for the question. And so what I will say is that we do know that this request for an economic impact analysis was made by the City Council in March. Since that time, we have been working to develop the best way to deliver that, whether with an existing vendor or vendors. And so what we've come back with in the memo that we sent to the City Council last night, we believe that it's in the interest of the city to go ahead and do a full-blown public solicitation, which will give us an opportunity to truly get a firm who has expertise in rail, and we can come back and hopefully award that sometime in October, and then give that that selected vendor an opportunity to do the study, and we'd come back sometime at the beginning of 2025. So that is our recommendation based on the resolution that's been presented today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman West, recognized for 5 minutes on item 44.
Thank you, Mayor, and I appreciate Chairman Atkins, Mayor Pro Tem Atkins' leadership on this item. Several of us had concerns about this when this came up in committee as with the RTC and the COG moving forward, literally full speed ahead, with us not really understanding what the Dallas to Fort Worth connection would look like. I haven't heard a single one of my colleagues have an issue with the Dallas to Houston leg. We've heard Amtrak up here saying that portion of the line is already approved. We want to move forward. We're excited about it. But then we're also presented by the COG with this, council's already approved this line to Fort Worth. Everything's done. It's baked. It's moving forward. And I appreciate this moment to pause for us to really think about this and what the impact would be. And so I have a few questions. For the city manager, first of all, like the economic impact study, what do you see as the parameters that are going to be looked at within that economic impact study?
Thank you so much for the question. I'd like to have Director Concarly come out. We've been talking about the actual scope, and I know that there's been some due diligence already that's taken place around it, but I would rather let my transportation expert come out and share with you kind of the parameters and what we would look for as it relates to the outcome from that work that we would have done independently.
Thank you.
Gus?
Thank you. Honorable Mayor and member of the council, good afternoon. Gus Concarly, Director of the Department of Transportation.
Thank you.
Yes, so as far as the economic study is concerned, we're still kind of developing the detailed scope on it. However, we're going to be using the parameters that were laid out during the conversations that the Mayor Pro Tem had discussed during the committee meeting. So we're still looking at specifically, and I'm going to be high level because I don't have the full details yet because we have to go through the procurement process. But we will be looking at the positives and the negatives from that study, and to be transparent and to be upfront and look at all the outcomes, whatever those outcomes are going to be.
So we spoke about on an earlier item today the opportunity cost of doing something and what you might lose as an opportunity for taking something away. So I guess as part of the economic impact study, do you anticipate if this rail line is built in the way that was presented by Mr. Morris, where the station's located, and it's above ground and everything, do you anticipate reviewing the opportunity cost of that lost land that's going to be cut off from the city?
So let me clarify a couple of things. I mean, the federal process requires a presentation of alternatives. And I don't believe that a specific alignment has been selected. So they still have to look at the alignments in accordance with the federal process. So that's item number one. Item number two is whatever the alternatives that are going to be considered will be matched with the study itself and what the study could give and and the impact of that alternative. So I expect that to be the case.
Well, this kind of gets to the core of my frustration with this whole process is you just said there's no alignment that's been chosen yet. However, we understand that the COG is moving forward with environmental designs. We're told up here in this public setting that there's been dozens and dozens, maybe even 100 meetings on this, but I have yet to see elevations or engineering designs provided by the federal government, the COG, Mr. Morris, you, anyone. I've seen them from the owners of the hotel, but not from you. And so, how can you say we don't know what the economic impact study will do because we don't have an alignment? You know, what's the chicken and egg scenario here?
So, and I'm going to talk again, general, because I don't want to speak for the NCT COG. Again, in the federal process, let's say we're putting in a roadway on a new alignment or something on a new alignment. Generally, they will be developing different alternatives, and they will be developing the pros and cons for each alternative, and then they will make a recommendation of a preferred alternative. So this is how that process will work itself. So in this case, my anticipation is that they may have 2 or 3 preferred or alternative alignments that they would like to be looking at, and these are the alignments that we will be looking at as part of the economic impact of those alignments.
Well, maybe I'm wrong, but I've been told, or my understanding is that it's just been one preferred alignment this whole time that the COG's been working with. Is that not correct? Have they been working with multiple alignments?
Based on the presentation that happened here a couple of months ago, I think the alignments that were presented were especially specifically through the downtown area, were alternatives either on the east side or the west side of the property that will be or potentially was going to be impacted.
Okay, maybe that's my confusion then, but this is the problem when I don't have any kind of graphics or depictions. It's just words on paper that this is the whole process that's been troubling to me, that I haven't seen anything that's I feel is concrete here. And how can we as a council move forward without that? And I feel like this economic impact study, the parameters are, at least right now, pretty gray as well. So I hope to see that. And I'm not trying to be difficult here, City Manager. This has been my frustration all along, is the lack of information on this. So another question on the actual changes to the motion, which I do support overall, is you're changing the reference from above ground rail lines to above ground passenger rail lines. What's the impact of that change?
So again, we were presenting this as very late last week. So we were reviewing it, and part of the review is we wanted to make sure that we have clarity and consistency without impacting the spirit of the resolution. So if you look at Section 3 of the resolution, it specifically calls out the Dallas to Fort Worth high-speed rail, whereas in the initial write-up, if you will, of the first version before the amendment, it talked about rail in general, and there were no specificity. The concern that staff had is the fact that we were concerned that if the language is not clarified, it may impact other projects that we're working on, such as the downtown I-30 reconstruction and the UP Railroad and all that stuff. So this is the reason why we proposed this change, and I would defer it to y'all, basically whichever way you'd like to move, or keep it as is, or change it to Dallas to Fort Worth, high-speed rail. All what I'm recommending to this body is consistency and clarity for staff to be able to work and operate and manage the other projects.
So for the city attorney, will this change, is the resolution clear with this change that the Dallas to Fort Worth high-speed rail connection is on pause while we wait for the economic impact study?
What the resolution says is that we're not supporting construction of any above-ground passenger rail lines at this time.
Okay. What about development of the station associated with a passenger rail line to Fort Worth?
I'm not sure. I would defer to Gus as to whether or not the station itself is part of the rail line.
So I'm assuming you're referring to the station from the the Houston to Dallas station?
No, like when it's where the concept that we've heard about with like the 20 stories that you've got to go up if it's built a certain way to get to the Fort Worth trek.
I believe you're referring to the white paper that Mr. Morris prepared and discussed basically that if the alignment was going to be below ground, then it will have to start at the station in the Cedars, basically about 17 stories down from where the existing one is. So that is, I'm assuming that's what is being referred to.
I just want to make sure any new development beyond what's been approved by Amtrak for the Dallas to Houston, anything new beyond that it's understanding that we are not supporting it until we get the economic impact study and reanalyze that. That's what I want to know.
If I could jump in for just a second, thank you so much. Councilmember West, I think that's the reason why we inserted the modifications into the resolution that we hope would be supported. And then if you look at Section 3, it does say that the Dallas City Council commits to then revisit the proposed Dallas to Fort Worth high-speed rail discussion after the economic impact study comes back to the City Council. So I think it's very clear as to what this resolution would require of staff, and then being able to come back, and at that time, if there's any additional conversations that need to happen and discussions around alignment, and all of that would not be done in advance of us completing this study.
Okay, that makes me feel better. I will end on a positive note here that I do want to, personally at least, I can speak for council, but I do want to support this alignment to Fort Worth. I just feel like, as the Mayor Pro Tem said, we can't do big projects like this without understanding the economic impact, especially if we're going to be cutting off a part of downtown, which we've seen. And it applies for this project. That kind of same study should be used for Interstate 345 because it's just as big of a project. Thank you.
Chairman Narvaez, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank my colleague, Chairman Atkins, Mayor Pro Tem Atkins, for listening and working with me and we work with staff to get this changed. That one sentence would have really boxed in Dallas, and I think this is a very huge project. And I also understand that we have a partner in a developer that needs some assurance for what we had agreed to in a working meeting. And so it's okay. It's just there was one sentence that just didn't look so good. And that's the one that's being changed, where it said no rail above ground. That says no passenger rail. That doesn't bind the city of Dallas to where we couldn't do anything for other projects that may or may not be coming down the line. What I can tell you is that as our member on the RTC, it was announced to us as members that we were going to have a workshop on high-speed rail in July. So there is no construction that can happen. Nothing can be built because there's no design yet. It's just, we're literally still at the route. What is the route going to look like? And that's the workshop, which is coming up in July. I've been told that it had to be canceled, because only, I was the only one who responded that I would be there, and we want to make sure that we have the workshop. So it will be in September now, because that's the next available date for RTC to do the workshop. So this all works out together anyway, but, and it's good because we give an assurance to the developer. We have our workshop. We can pause, tap the brakes, whatever you want to call it, and that's okay. Because we need to get this right, because this is going to affect Dallas for the next 100 years easily. So I want to thank, again, like I said, my colleague, Mayor Pro Tem, because, he listened to me after the committee meeting, and we worked on some things, and we just need to make sure that we get this right. And it's like, and my only issue is that one sentence, because of the way it was just written, and I'm not going to say it was poorly written or wrong or anything. It was just different for what we would normally do. But once we got it massaged out, this is great. This is good to go. It's aligned exactly with what we had agreed upon. in that working group meeting that Mayor Pro Tem and I called together with our partners and with the COG and with DDOT, so Dallas Department of Transportation. And as Chair of Transportation, I am happy and I say approve this so we can move along, so we can decide whether we want to go with this or not. But the economic impact study, all of that we had agreed to. So when that comes back, please share if you have certain parameters that you want to be looked at or investigated, so that whoever the vendor is that gets that award will be able to get the make sure they get the right answers for us, so we're not having to send it back or do it again. But that's if you have those, and if not, please let us know if you got some later on, because it's probably going to take. How long do you think that'll take for the economic impact study?
I have to follow up on that. I don't want to put a date on it, but we're hoping that we can achieve it in a timely manner, considering all the changing or moving parts, if you will, on the
Correct. And so I'll make sure that the non-RTC members, Mr. Mayor, that everybody gets alerted for the workshop, because I believe everybody's welcome to go watch and listen, and then you can share with us if there's things that you want us to say, colleagues, so that we can make sure we get that done in the workshop. And that's the whole point of the workshop, so we can all work together, the different cities, and on the areas that we need to, and so we can get this right. And as well as our partners, we want to make sure that they attend or watch, and they can send us messages or send us information, questions to ask, so we can make sure that we are doing what we promised we would do together, is be like this and not like this anymore. So thank you again, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hope that everybody will get this approved.
Ms. Blackman, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. So, hi Gus. I got the memo about what the update on the economic study, and we talked. You gave us the rundown, but I think what's intriguing to me is alternative alignments. Can you explain to me, because we kind of already have an alternative alignment existing now in the TRE, and so will that be evaluated in what upgrades could come to that to get the same amount of travel time? If that's what if the goal is to link Fort Worth and Dallas, which already exists, but if that's the goal, then we have something that exists, and what do we need to do? What are the upgrades that need to happen? And then will we still be able to make that and make it under a budget that we compared to what high-speed, and it's really not high-speed rail. Can we stop calling it that? What is it, 30 miles an hour? What's the speed? Okay, it's not high-speed. Anyway, a rail link between Dallas and Fort Worth. So I'm wondering, will that be included in the scope?
So let me answer it kind of two ways. Number one is, I think there has been discussions about the alternate connection, if you will, and I think North Central Council of Governments had some initial study on that and evaluation. So as far as what our study is going to do, we can expand our scope beyond just the high-speed rail component, if this is something that we want to do. So like I said, this is the first step in the commitment for us to kind of do the economic study, and certainly I will take this feedback and we'll consider that as part of
because I truly think if we're going to be really watching how we spend these precious dollars that we're going to get, and we want to maintain a robust connection, I think we should evaluate what we have now, and is it economically sound? So I do think it's part of a study, should be, because it's a balancing of understanding what we have now and what is potential and what is the cost to that, and then what's the benefit. So it's, I guess, a cost-benefit analysis too, because from my understanding, about $500 million, which is a 1/12 of the high-speed rail, would upgrade the TRE, and you would save, it's probably a 5-minute difference. I mean, that's a lot of money. And but the question is do we want to maintain the connection between Dallas and Fort Worth, or are we trying to serve Arlington? And I think those are, and I'm not likely to support something that's going to cannibalize either a project that we already have on the books or future ones in the city of Dallas. So that's why I'm trying to understand what are we trying to get from this? And I totally agree with it, but I'm wanting to understand what we're trying to get with our economic study in hopes of making these decisions.
No, I hear you. I mean, like I said, I'm very much, I mean, like I said, I'm aware that some work has been done. I just don't want to duplicate the work that has
Correct.
already
You
been
could
done.
fold it
so
in
I
to
want to
the-
make sure that when we set up the scope, if we're going to expand it to say that it will complement what has already been done so that we can optimize the use of our funds.
Yes, because I think, don't duplicate, take what's been done and understand it better,
Correct.
right? And then we are looking to partner with Fort Worth and Arlington, I guess from the memo last night. How does that partnership look like when one of the, the cities how does that partnership look like?
So there has been discussions of their interest in performing the economic development or economic impact study in their respective cities. And since this has the local impact as well as the region, so we said that we may be able to kind of pool our resources together and have potentially one joint procurement that addresses basically the scope for what we want to do versus what they want to do and so on. It's more of a, like I said, pooling our resources together and in a joint effort.
And is it anticipated that it will go over the threshold?
I'm
Will
sorry.
it come back to us? I mean, that's
yes,
the
yes.
anticipation. So it's going to be a very robust, detailed study, and it's 4 months. Is that what we've hoped for?
We hope to have the procurement and the selection done within the next 4 months, and then after that, they would go off and do the work. If we just said an anticipated timeline, we would hope by the first quarter of 2025, calendar year.
Given, I think there's an RTC meeting tomorrow, will they then, because it looks like a year, right, probably to get this something back for us to understand it. What's going to happen in the meantime between the workshops and all the discussion? Like, is it truly going to be on pause, or will still work be happening, with our federal partners, et cetera?
So we will work on the schedule perspective. And again, I mean, we've got a period of 4 months here before we can get our procurement off the ground and going. And like I said, they still have a lot of work to do. So from the last conversation, I think the timing is still okay for all these things to be working together. So
I guess I'm trying to ask, will RTC honor this resolution?
I can't speak for RTC. I mean, I've got RTC members that can better speak. But from a staff perspective, I think...
So we will make sure that they are aware. And if this is passed today, then it's immediate, right?
For
tomorrow.
It goes into effect after it's passed. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Because I guess I'm just trying to make sure that it's very clear of what this body wants to do, and RTC is understanding that and will honor it. And I guess that's up to us to make sure that that stays true to the honor code.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Did you want to ask something, Majid?
For clarification purposes, Honorable Mayor and Council members, Majid Al-Ghafri, Assistant City Manager. As the City Manager said, the economic development study can come in different forms. Mm-hmm. I know you're asking about the economic development study being something specific. You can have a 50,000-foot level of saying, look, here's the benefits, here are the challenges with this, and we move on. And then you get to a different level where you say, now we can concentrate on a specific area. Is this good for this area? And then you get to even peel more and more and more levels with that. What I'm hearing from the City Council is they are interested, you are interested in getting the different levels of that. So it's incumbent upon us to write a very comprehensive economic development RFP to make sure that if you want us to go and peel the onion more and more and more, that we have the ability to do that. Now, that's going to be with the things that are going to be discussed in July and August and all of that. There has to be some coordination as well and some connectivity between what's going to be done by RTC and RTC membership and what we can come back to you as the city council and make sure if you wanted to include those types of findings in the economic development study, because if we're not integrating those, we're gonna go back next year and be in the same position, in the same boat. So I just want to caution us, I mean that sincerely, in the sense of making sure that the RFP has to be very comprehensive, and there has to be a step 1, step 2, step 3, whatever the city council desires, because if you're expecting us to come back with the economic development study with a specific alignment that has not been 100% vetted, then all that work it'll be gone to waste.
Well, I think we're.
So I just want to mention
and
that.
I understand that, but I think we also need to understand what the landscape of all these. So, what are the threats, right? And so, I think we're pretty good at determining, using data and facts, and then figuring out what's best for our city. And I think we just want to make sure, like you said, it's pretty comprehensive, because there's a lot of information out there and a lot of different scenarios.
If I could just jump in for just a second. Thank you so much, Councilwoman Blackman. We will definitely make sure that the City Council is aware once we get the scope in a form that we believe it's ready to send out. We'll share that with the City Council, and then we'll, as Director Concarly mentioned, we'll definitely give you a more in-depth schedule so you can kind of expect and see what's going to happen over the next few months. But thank you for the questions.
Thank you. Thank you.
Chairwoman Mendelson, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. I'm going to support this resolution, and I appreciate it being brought forward. The RTC has had several meetings about alignment and has generally selected an alignment that mirrors I-30. Along the way, there were a lot of other alignments considered that were eliminated, some because of right-of-way, some because of safety concerns, some because of challenges with topography. But what didn't happen that's really important is that the study that was done for the FRA was not shared with the RTC. And that study said you should be using TRE. And any other option is too expensive. So that is the missing link here, is that the RTC was never even given that information to make a more informed decision. But right now, the federal environmental, the FEIS, the Federal Environmental Impact Statement, is already started. And it generally takes a year, is that right?
It depends, but at least a year.
Every RTC member is aware of this issue, aware that Dallas has objections. What we were never given along the way is how would it enter into the city of Dallas. So the highway alignment was discussed, but every time I asked this question over and over, but how will it come into Dallas? Well, that's further in. And we've never gotten to well, show us what it looks like, to Councilmember West's point. And that is part of the objection. So I guess my question is, well, I'm going to make a comment that Michael Morris did propose having this conference to talk about high-speed rail in July. At the meeting, I asked for it to not be in July because, of course, we're all on recess. I'm certain it was not intentional. Just be quiet there. But he did offer to reschedule that. And, of course, anybody who cares about this issue, I encourage you to attend. The big point, though, that we didn't address in the resolution, and I don't know that we need to at this point, is there's a core item, and Michael Morris himself has said this. There's no point of the Dallas to Fort Worth rail if the Dallas to Houston rail doesn't happen. There's no point. But we don't know Dallas to Houston will happen. And so until we know it'll happen, why are we even spending money on this? Why are we doing anything? Frankly, the economic study you do may be so out of date by the time this is legit, we would have to do it all over again. So in reality, we ought to be pausing until they get clearance that they have all the land they need, they've hit every hurdle. Once they have Dallas to Houston, come talk to us about Dallas to Fort Worth. None of us will be here. And that may mean around the horseshoe, that may be even alive at that point. Because I don't see that this is going to pass in the House. I think there are going to be a lot of hurdles for them. So with that, when you are doing the economic impact statement, because no matter what I said, I know that's going to go forward, I would like them to actually prove it. So don't just come back to us and say, oh, we don't think this will provide any harm to Dallas. Prove it. I want to understand what their assumptions are at every assumption point. I want to understand the opportunity costs. And then lastly, I want to make sure it includes what that downtown community connection is. Because we've had robust conversations about 345 and how horrible it is to go underneath the highway, but we're just creating that same kind of structure. So all of those have to be included along with all the traditional things about, economic development. But I'm not even sure that this should go this far until we know they're even going to build Dallas to Houston. Otherwise, we're just providing a way for our convention business to go to Arlington, for our residents to go party there. I mean, we are going to be doing something extremely detrimental to our city. So that's my input. Thank you for bringing the resolution forward. Definitely support it.
Deputy Mayor Pro Tem, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Mayor Johnson, thank you, Mayor Johnson. But just quickly, I do also value the changes that have been made because it was kind of awkward and I couldn't support the first resolution as written. But just in light of, since the Deputy Mayor Pro Tem mentioned District 4 and the rail that divides, I've had nothing but concerns launched at me in terms of the impact of that particular rail down Lancaster Road. And I think and I wasn't on the council then and I haven't had time to go back and do the ample research, but I think had more research and interest been applied in that situation, I wouldn't have the issues that I have now with the communities wanting sound walls and getting some calls about the land, the movement and impact of the rail constantly hitting and the shifting of fences and those types of things in that corridor. Safety is still an issue for some who are trying to cross. But I think overall it's the economic impact because that was already a kind of a weak area. And so when that train came down the line, straight down the line, it created more challenges. But I'm going to support this and talk to Deputy Mayor Pro Tem about the economic impact study because even though I'm supporting this, I'm like, when is it going to happen and those types of things. But I think we all need to be mindful of this as these projects roll out. I do support the rail. District 4 has already been received some of the impact from the initial buyouts, and so I still have questions, and Ms. Molly knows that I have those questions about what happens. I've already talked about the environmental and those types of things in that Fruitdale area in particular. But holistically, I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember superconductor, super collider. I don't know if that would make you a grandpa or a grandma. The superconductor, super collider, remember it started real big and then all of a sudden Congress did this and it was gone. So I'm hoping it doesn't happen with the light rail, but just know things can happen. But it's so important for us to really look more in terms of what the concerns are from the standpoint of the business community. You have residents downtown, and you have them, of course, in District 4 where it's been impacted. But I think most of all, it's just making sure we check that box there so we are responsive to the request that we study the impact. But I want everyone to know, the public, council members, the public, and staff and city manager, I don't have a problem when I'm really supporting someone and I trust them. I'm going to put it on the record, and I do trust Michael Morris. I trust him because initially we didn't have a good relationship, but one thing he did do for me, he reassured me in his work that he was always going to do the right thing, definitely as it related to some of our underserved communities. And I represent one of those. And so he's made a pledge to what we know to be the southern sector, for sure. But there are other areas, if you look at his work, many of our deck parks wouldn't even be in a discussion would it not be for the hard work that he gives in terms of trying to find the money on the federal level, in particular for our project? So I applaud him for that. So I'm going to trust him in terms of his wisdom and his knowledge and experience on this project, that they do what is right by this project. And so I thank him for that, and I want to say that publicly, because not many people put their money where their mouth is. And, you know, Mayor, we kind of tease him and call him Money Mike. But realistically, I can tell you that he comes through on his work and his commitment, and I'm going to hold him to that same commitment with the study and the communications with the rail from the Fort Worth and Dallas leg. I think that's where the confusion is, where the conversation and need for more transparency and information is showing. So I will go along with this particular resolution and proposal, but it is important that we not repeat a project that kills a community. And I'm having a difficult time trying to revitalize it, but I think after my statement this morning about the bond of 2012 that's still listed here with money, we're going to get a good start on trying to revitalize that area. Thank you.
Chairman Moreno, you're recognized for 5 minutes on item 44.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a clarification on the motion on the second bullet. Change reference to above ground rail lines to above ground passenger rail lines. Is that new above ground passenger rails, or just above ground?
Can I answer that, Mary?
Of course.
Please.
Yes, Tammy, I think in the resolution it's in there, but in the motion it was not in there, so it was an error.
Okay. So it will say new.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. As a council member that represents the Cedars, where the planned station between Dallas to Houston is, I'm fully committed and fully supportive. I believe that's what we're hearing loud and clear from my colleagues today. So by no means do we want to slow that process down. We want to make sure that we're continuing along that route. I'm just going to echo some of the frustrations and questions that my colleagues have addressed on the Dallas to Fort Worth alignment. And unfortunately, many of my questions remain unanswered, and therefore, at this time, could not support the current alignment that is being proposed between Dallas and Fort Worth. That doesn't mean, however, that after this economic impact study is conducted, that we cannot revisit this to determine if there is alternative routes to look at. I do want to make sure, though, that first of all, let me ask you this. This resolution will it be presented to which other organizations? Who will get the message that Dallas is, hopefully in a few minutes, going to be potentially adopting this resolution? Who are we sending this message to?
I think as far as we're concerned here as staff, we have to comply with the resolution of, what the council is directing staff to do. So, I don't know if I answered that question.
If I could just jump in for a moment. Thank you so much for the question, Councilman Moreno. In the way I read the memo from the spirit of it is really giving staff guidance about what you would like for us to not do and to do. And so whoever reads it will definitely, I hope, take the same message away from it. It's really about the city council setting a path forward that allows for us to go and do the work that was requested in March and bring that work back to this body to have a conversation around any additional, whether it's considerations around alignment or anything else, not doing any of that until that study that's been requested comes back. And so, in my opinion, this is a public document, but it's really about giving the city manager guidance and how we're going to ensure that we're adhering to the guidance from this body.
Thank you. What I want to make sure, as well, is that the current alignment that's being proposed doesn't continue to move forward with additional costs, with additional study, because far too often what we'll see is we've invested so much money, we're this far down the line, therefore we've got to move forward with the option that's been presented to us. So I want to make sure that we're sending a message that we're halting any additional study until that economic impact comes before us.
Just to be clear, we as staff and the city of Dallas, we're not managing the project between Dallas and Fort Worth. So as far as the study is concerned, the economic study, we're the one that we're going to develop the scope, and we will be managing that part. And certainly whatever directive that we will get from council is what we're going to be complying with.
At the end of the day, we heard earlier about issues of trying to go backwards, and some of the implementations have happened because of a result of poor or bad planning or not having all the answers before us. This is such a critical part of downtown Dallas, next to our convention center, where we're already investing a lot of our dollars. And I just want to make sure that we're doing this thoughtfully, that we're doing it with the information that we requested before we adopt anything, before we move forward. And so my hope is that this resolution will send a clear message that the city of Dallas currently does not support the above ground alignment that has been presented. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And then just to clarify and be on the record to say that as part of the federal process, we have and should have plenty of opportunities to have input in the process as it is being developed. So I just wanted to be clear that we have that opportunity.
Chairman Ridley, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's important that this resolution send a message to other bodies that the City of Dallas Council will not abrogate its responsibilities to its residents to decide what is the best path forward for transportation in Dallas, and that we will not let them anticipate that the City Council will rubber stamp whatever proposal, whatever alignment they put forward. We represent our citizens, they don't, and we need to send that message. While it would be my preference that we call a hiatus in this proposed project until we see that the Dallas to Houston project is going forward, I do support this resolution because it does put a brake on this accelerating train, pardon the analogy, that seems to want to ignore the wishes of this body. I do have some questions about the participation in this economic study by the cities of Arlington and Fort Worth. And I ask first, why would we want to include them in decisions about what is best for Dallas economically? And what influence, if they are going to be included as quote-unquote partners, what influence will they have on the outcome of this study?
Thank you so very much for the question, Councilmember Ridley. Well, first of all, the study is being commissioned by the City of Dallas, and the scope of services that will be developed will be done by the City of Dallas. I think what Director Concarly mentioned is that both of those cities also want to have data that would support whatever economic analysis that supports whatever decisions, but anything that gets added relating to those cities will be done possibly with the same consultant, and they would be responsible for the payment of that portion of the study. So our scope and what we're developing is really about Dallas. What we know is that there are organizations out there that do this kind of work. Would we want to spend 2 years debating then which study is the right one and which one has the right data? So the conversations pretty much have been is that the City of Dallas would move forward with the procurement itself, the selection of the firm, and then if there's an opportunity for them to also utilize that same vendor, then we'd have that conversation and they would participate by paying for that portion. So there's not an influence, in my opinion, because we're in control of developing the scope of services that will go out, and the selection of the vendor will be all done by the city.
Well, I want to make sure that we are insulated from any influence by those other communities, which could skew the results of this consultant's conclusions that are not in the interests of Dallas. And so if they want to hire their own consultant and do their own economic studies, that's their within their purview. I just don't want them tainting the results of our study by being considered partners or contributing financially to our study.
Your point is very well taken. Thank you very much.
I guess, do you anticipate that this study will include within its scope an examination of at least two alternative alignments, or is this just going to look at the I-30 alignment?
At this point, the way we are perceiving or looking at it is there will be a couple of alignments that has been put forward or could be added to the alignments that NCT COG has looked at.
Okay, well, I think that's essential. There's no sense just looking at one alignment and saying this will have a positive economic effect on Dallas without comparing it to the effect of another alignment.
Correct. And that's why I started my conversation by stating that this is following the federal rule. And the federal process, basically, they have not, even if there has been conversation about saying, well, we think the alignment is going to be at this location, but thinking is not necessarily setting the alignment. They still have to go through the whole federal process. And this is the reason why I stated earlier is we will be looking at the potential alignments that could be put forward, whether the existing ones or there could be potential new ones that could come up. So,
well, since you've mentioned this federal process, I'd like to know whether that can proceed without the consent of the city of Dallas.
Again, I'm going to speak to the federal process, and the way the federal process is, they can start a study, and then they have to have public engagement and stakeholders engagement. And part of the stakeholder engagements, and one of the stakeholder engagement in this process is definitely the city of Dallas. And we have to make sure that we are at the table and making the necessary comments or statements that we need to make as part of the process. We have precedents on another project and where we have done well and where we have not done well. So we need to make sure that we are alert and engaged in the process.
Well, I trust that if the city of Dallas decides it does not want this light rail alignment through I-30, or perhaps doesn't want the high-speed rail line at all, that the people in Washington will be listening to us and expect that we will be on board with this if it is to proceed forward.
Yes, sir. I mean, I'm going to go back to Chair Mendelson's statement a few minutes ago. Depending on the type of document that will be pursued as far as the environmental document is concerned, there will be a process. And, for example, if it ends up being an environmental impact statement, there will be a record of decision, and it will be in the Federal Register, and there will be a whole slew of process, basically, that we have to go through. So there are a lot of steps, if you will, that would allow us to have an active engagement.
Have an active what?
Active engagement.
Okay, thank you.
Chairwoman Schultz, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's also, and this may be part of your scope in the study, but as you look at the route, just the Dallas-Fort Worth route and the stops that are there and the economic development that's happening along the current stops of both the planned alignment or the potential alignment on 30 and the TRE and where it's going now, if we were to use that, for example, and invest in that, as Councilmember Blackman, mentioned that's one of the considerations. I think it's really important that we look at, 50 years out in terms of our economic development partners, our economic development competitors, and looking at the north, you've got, Grapevine, Irving, all of that. Arlington, right now we're seeing Fort Worth, not even Fort Worth so much as Arlington as the potential economic challenger. But if we look down the road and all the stuff that's sort of happening along that curve to the north, I think it's super important in that economic analysis that we look at their growth and their plans so that we see that as well, not just today's scenario. That's number one. Number two, to the point about partnering with them on this, all of us have to see each other down. We must, of course, have Dallas first, and we should. I also think that we need to see each other as honest brokers in this. And if anyone's skewing perspectives, it will become obvious in that report. So I'm certainly confident that no company is going to risk their own reputation by having a skewed report on this. So that, to me, the more we partner on this, even, if it comes out, it's very obvious that it should be the Arlington route. Again, I think on that northern, the TRE route, which certainly many people would like us to go that direction, we need to look at that and see in terms of partners along that route as well. Because it won't be, we already know it won't be high-speed rail between Dallas and Fort Worth. So there could be many opportunities there for stops, but we have to also understand the threat to Dallas on those. And then finally, if we do go the TRE route, are there opportunities to leverage that within our existing DART system if we want to, help connect to other lines that may be there? Again, because it will become much more of a commuter rail, if you will, for the Dallas to Fort Worth, and what could happen along that line. Because my understanding, the point of even having that route to Fort Worth is to get us outside beyond, the entire Metroplex. So if that's the truth, then how else can we leverage this opportunity? That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. It was way before 5 minutes.
Okay, all right, I was just checking. All right, I'm about to go to 3-minute rounds, but I don't see anyone else who hasn't gotten in yet. Okay. Chairwoman Mendelson, you're recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you. I want to thank my colleagues for their very thoughtful comments on this. And actually, I'd like to ask our legislative staff to capture today's comments on the record. We have people who love to say on the record, but so that we can share these comments along with the resolution to both our RTC and COG board members who are all very aware of this, but they might not hear the finer points of what are being discussed. And is that possible to do? You're shaking your head, Carrie. Thank you so much. I would defer to Transportation Chair if he would like to read the resolution tomorrow at the RTC meeting. If not, perhaps we'll pass it out or another member would like to read it. It's clear to me, though, Gus, that we're not able to halt the FEIS. I believe that once it starts, there's like a clock that's ticking for them to complete. Is that correct?
I believe they have the Corridor ID grant program, and they're proceeding.
Okay. So, you were mentioning about being able to give comment and input. And I don't know if this council knows, but when the whole Cotton Belt Silver Line issue came up, the city of Dallas provided 0 comments from the transportation department. You were not the transportation director. I was not on council, but we didn't even give input. We missed it. We totally missed it. And we cannot miss it on this. And we have to make sure that not only do you provide technical expertise, which I know you will, but that the community is aware of what's happening because they will be so impacted. Landowners, everybody needs to understand that we have the opportunity to make changes that will provide good transportation for Dallas, but only if we raise our hand and attend the meetings and submit comments. And we did not do that at all with the Cotton Belt. So it's very, very important. And it's why we created kind of a fuss at the point that we did, because as soon as that starts going to an FEIS, you don't back it up. And to Councilmember Moreno's point, this FEIS gets done, we will for sure have that thrown up in our face that, well, we've already got this done. We already have environmentally cleared for the Cedars. It is going to keep coming back to us. And so we have to be able to pause. And the way to do it is exactly what's happening now. So I commend you, Mayor Pro Tem, for bringing the resolution forward. I think we need to pass this thing unanimously and make sure that we are standing together on this issue. Thank you.
Chairman Narvaez, we're back to you for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So far, just because I'm hearing a lot of different things, we have not spent any money as a city, with the exception of staff time to go communicate with the COG or anything like that. No money's been spent. So The comments about don't spend any more money, you would have to stop staff from going to go do exactly what this resolution wants. So we're not spending any money. We haven't spent any money. We don't have a budget for anything on this because we're not paying for it. But we do have to figure out what we're going to do. There is no route that is, they offered us a route. It could be massage, it could not, but it's up to this body anyway. So if we hate it, they're going to have to adjust it. If we love it, then they're going to be okay. As far as the comment on me reading at RTC, that's not even eligible because it's not on the agenda. So I will be sending it directly. Madam City Manager, if you don't mind sending it to Michael Morris at the RTC so that he has the copy and then RTC can decide what it wants to do with it because that body is separate from this body, even though some of us are members of that body. And it'll be up to that body to deal with that as they want. But they're fine. I know that Michael Morse helped us get this massaged out so that we could all work together. And so this isn't a you versus us or us versus them. This is we're a unit, we're together, and we're going to have to get through those differences. And we typically always do. Because you have to give a little to get a little and vice versa. And, keep it positive because if we get there, it's going to be amazing. And if we don't, well, it's a choice that we are going to make as a body, whether this is in the next year or beyond when that decision is made. This body will be deciding what's good for Dallas because that's what it does. And every single time we do our best to get it right, and I'm just excited that, to hear more comments because it's hard to try to guide things at the RTC or for them and for us when we don't get to do it as a body. So I appreciate all the comments because we're hearing some robust conversation, probably a little beyond the scope of the actual article that's before us. But this is all good feedback. I know that members of the RTC are listening right now, Mr. Mayor, because they're very interested in what we have to say, and they're willing to work with us. They've never not been willing to work with us, and we're going to get this right, Mr. Mayor, because that's our job. And as long as I'm chair of transportation, we're going to get this right for Dallas and get everybody's concerns as best we can taken care of, because that's exactly how we've done it this entire time. With that, Mr. Mayor, I hope that we pass this unanimously as well. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, you're recognized for 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Navarez. And we're going to work together, economic transportation. Also, City Manager, I want to make sure that we're going to be on break in July. Make sure we get a timeline, when the RSP go out, when we come back. So therefore, I didn't hear a whole lot of discussion of what's going on. But I just want to make sure that we as a council, we as a policymakers, we are the steward of the city of Dallas, and we also know that when we do development, that pay for our public safety, pay for our streets, pay for keep our libraries open. But one thing is, we are Dallas. We represent the city of Dallas. And ever since I've been here, I said, we do not represent the region. People come to Dallas, and for so many years, they take advantage of Dallas because we are Dallas, because DFW Airport, because Love Field, because downtown, McLaren Park, all those amenities that we put our money in there, our taxpayer put our money in there. People drive into Dallas, go back home, and don't live in Dallas. Until we take a ownership of Dallas and sell Dallas, we are going to be behind because people move in this region because of downtown Dallas. Also, with saying that the Convention Center Hotel, downtown Dallas, we are losing population downtown Dallas. Believe it or not, we are losing population downtown Dallas. So we need to spur economic development in the downtown area, in the central business district. And transportation is a big part, but we got to be a steward. We got to be in the know, and I think with Chairman DeVires on RTC, representing all the RTC members over there, you got to come back and educate us what is going on. And I think that going forward, we need more update what is going on in the RTC for the full council. And Ms. City Manager, I hope that when we do RTC, when we do come back, we get up there, because sometimes we're left out of those meetings. We just don't know. But I know we can attend those meetings, but we just don't know. We're not part of those meetings. And also, Ms. Mendelson, if we can come back and give us a brief outline of what's going on, because I hear today something we just don't know. And if we know ahead of time and we miss it somehow, we can use our influence to make sure we understand what's going on. And again, we probably bring Michael Morrison sometimes, since he's the one here, let's let him give us a briefing what he is doing so we know exactly what he's doing. Not what he's doing behind the scene, but in front of us, we ask him the hard question and let him answer for himself instead of we trying to answer for him. Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Pro Tem, you're recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor, but you know what I really was going to propose? A record vote.
Okay. Duly noted, we'll have that for sure. Anyone else wish to speak on for or against item 44? As it was read by the Mayor Pro Tem, it was slightly changed. Okay. A record vote's been requested, Madam Secretary. Let's go ahead with the roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I call your name, please state yes if you're in favor, no if you oppose. Mayor Johnson?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Atkins? Deputy Mayor Pro Tem Arnold?
Yes.
Councilmember West?
Yes.
Councilmember Moreno? Yes. Councilmember Gracie? Councilmember Resendez is absent when vote taken. Councilmember Narvaez?
Yes.
Councilmember Basil-Dua? Yes. Councilmember Blackman?
Yes.
Councilmember Stewart? Councilmember Schultz?
Yes.
Councilmember Mendelson? Councilmember Willis? Councilmember Ridley? Thank you. With all 14 members of council voting in favor, 1 absent when vote taken, this item passes, Mr. Mayor.
Wonderful. Let's move on to the next item.